Hi, my name is Teresa and this is my channel Homestead Life. Welcome to my kitchen. We are going to be making some Mexican ground beef and we are going to be doing that for some burritos that I'm going to be assembling later. But I wanted to kind of just show how I make the ground beef that I put into my tacos, tostadas, burritos, enchiladas. It's kind of a generic recipe that can be used for anything, otherwise commonly referred to as taco meat. So we're gonna start with this big 10-pound chuck roll of ground beef. Now this is 80-20 ground beef, and I don't have, any smaller things at the moment. I actually purchased this specifically for what I'm doing because I'm gonna be making a very large batch of burritos. I'm gonna cut this in half because I'm only gonna use about 5 pounds just for this particular cooking adventure. The other 5 I have reserved for something else. So we're going to start by cutting this in half. And I've kind of just measured it out and put a little line on here. So I've got just roughly half. It's not having to be 100% perfect. And then I'm going to take the other half here that I'm not going to use at the moment, put just a little piece of saran wrap around the end here. And we're going to place this back in the refrigerator, because I want to keep it nice and cold. I will be using this by the end of the day, so it's not like it's going to be sitting in my refrigerator for a long time, or I would put it in something else. So there we go, into the refrigerator. Go ahead and put this back. And we'll go ahead and just kind of slice this so that we can have this easy to peel. And let's head over to the stove. Okay, so here we have our cast iron skillet. And I don't have anything in it, which is not needed. I don't need any oils or anything like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and start the flame here on about a medium high. And I'm going to put my ground beef in here. And I'm going to take my little masher tool here and start mashing this up. This is, the unexciting part of doing this is getting this all started to be browned up. We want to actually get a little bit of browning happening before I put the seasonings in. I love the big cast iron pans when I'm making a large batch of something. It just makes quick and easy work of things. So let's kind of let this do its thing for a minute or so. And because it's an 80-20, it does have enough fat in it that it will not stick. When you have your cast iron pan well seasoned, it's going to be like a very well non-stick, very expensive non-stick type pan. This is not a fancy cast iron, it is just a Lodge cast iron, but I love it. I use it a lot. I actually have 2 of these, but I predominantly use this one. And then let's let it sit for just a minute. I get impatient when it comes to frying meat. Now, some people will use onions in here as well, and you can do that. And some people use tomatoes or jalapenos or serrano peppers, which you can do that as well. I don't like to do that because I'm not exactly certain who all is going to eat my burritos, in the sense of I make these for my husband, and sometimes he'll take them to work, or sometimes I'll give these to my grandkids as well when they come over as a snack. And I like to have them available for people that have different taste buds. So I try not to put a lot of extra stuff in there. Like, my husband is not very big on spice. I am. So what I do is I make this less spicy for him. And then if I want to spice it up myself, for my personal taste, I'll just add some hot sauce when I'm eating it. That way I'm not doing things that just I like, but I'm kind of keeping in mind those who will also be eating what I'm cooking. And I know it's easy to season things the way that you like them, but I always try to keep in mind who else I'm cooking for. But I've always had a large audience of people at dinner, in the sense of having a larger family. So not all the kids liked spicy food. Some of them did, some of them didn't. So I always had to make sure and please the entire crowd, right? You don't want to just make it one way and force everybody to eat it. At least that's my opinion. And I don't buy taco seasoning mix. I mean, I have made some of my own. I came across a really cool seasoning mix a couple years back that I had found that I really liked. And I've used that a lot over the years when I'm making, I made this Mexican, I call it Mexican meatballs because it's kind of like meatballs, but it's more spicy. I've done the Mexican version of spiced peppers and things like that, like stuffed peppers. And when I do that, I use this spice mix that I came across. And I'll be using that again today. I do that instead of just a basic taco seasoning mix because it does have some authentic Mexican spices. I use, for instance, I use comino instead of cumin, Mexican comino, which is, I probably don't say it correctly, but it has a completely different flavor than ground cumin. It's similar, but it's night and day. Just like Mexican oregano is different than regular oregano. Like it is a whole different flavor palette. So I try to be kind of as authentic as I can. Obviously, this is not 100% authentic, but it definitely isn't Taco Bell or any, fast food kind of. And when I was growing up as a child, my grandmother and mother, when they made like tacos, they weren't very creative with tacos. It was literally just fried ground beef. So it was extremely bland. There was no seasoning in it or anything like that, which can still be good, but you got your seasoning from the salsa that you put on there or the toppings, because we always did it like in a taco bar style. So as I grew up and ventured out on my own and started cooking for myself, and then, eventually my family, I started experimenting with different flavors and different spices and finding that I liked different flavor combinations. And this was back before there was anything other than a cookbook. I mean, you might see a couple of little cooking shows, but that was like Julia Childs, and that was kind of like the beginning of things. Back when I learned to cook and was first out on my own as an adult, we didn't have all the cooking channels and things like that we have now. There was not the Food Network, I'll tell you that. Okay, now you see how we have this really cooking. It's not 100% done yet, but it's getting there. And I always have a little spatula for the meat because it kind of sticks in the middle there. Okay, so this is almost cooked through, which is perfect. Now what I'm gonna do, while it's still kind of doing its saute, is I'm gonna try to get a spoon and I'm turning this down. I get a spoon, and then I am going to drain off some of this wonderful juice or fat that has cooked down. And one of the things that I use quite often are my actual canning jars. They come in handy for a lot of things. They can handle the heat. So I want to get as much of this off here as possible. Okay, so that's pretty good, because we don't want to take all of it, just a good chunk of it, because we want some of this fat set this off to the side. And now you'll notice I didn't put salt, I didn't put anything in here. And that's fine, because now is when I'm going to put that mix. And per pound, so this I'm gonna assume is about 5 pounds, right? Because we took a 10-pound roll and cut it in half. So for every 2 pounds, we're gonna do a teaspoon. So that's basically 2.5 teaspoons of this wonderful mix that I have here. And this mix is made up of chili powder, garlic powder, let's see, it has onion powder, the Mexican oregano, paprika, cumin, or actually comino, and then it has some salt and pepper in it, and 2.5. And we'll see how it tastes. I may end up adding more. And I just keep this mixed up in a jar so that I can have it on hand. And I'm gonna put about a cup to 2 cups of water. Maybe a cup and a half. Let's see. We're gonna turn this back up. Because again, I don't want it to have too much flavor, but I don't want it to have not enough. I'm just mildly flavoring this. Now, if I was gonna use it as the star of the dish, like if beef was gonna be the main attraction in the burrito, and the only thing in the burrito or the only thing on the tostada, then obviously I would season it a little bit more, but it's not. I am going to be doing bean and beef burritos, some beef burritos. I might even do some bean and chicharron burritos, which means I have to make the chicharrones too. Okay, so let's get this back up to a nice little boil, or so that it's able to soak through or get the water to evaporate out of here, but at least have this mixed. It smells good, and you can smell the aroma, so it's not minor in the flavor zone. It's gonna be flavorful, but it's not gonna be overly flavored. Again, there's going to be multiple flavors in what I'm using this for, so I don't want to overdo it with the seasonings now, because then it will just, that's all you'll taste when you bite into it is the seasoning, and that's not what I want. I want people to be able to, whoever's eating it, whether it's my husband, myself, one of my kids, one of his coworkers, whoever's eating the burritos, I want them to be able to taste the bean and the beef and have its own flavor, and not one thing overpower the other. And I will be tasting this before I call it good to see if I need to add more. One of the things about the Mexican spices is they seem to be, they have more punch to them, like they're more pungent. They have more flavor to them. So it's almost like using fresh spices even when they're not fresh. I don't know why, it just seems to be that way. So, all right, let's let this simmer for just a little. We're not gonna want to cook this until most of this liquid is gone, the majority of this liquid. hard time just letting it sit. As you can see, none of this is sticking, right? I started with 0 oil, none of it's sticking. It's cooking down really good. I don't want big chunks, I want it nice and, I don't want it like pate, but I definitely want this to be easily used in burritos. Now when I get to the burrito assembly, my goodness, I have quite the evening ahead of me. And that's cool, that's good. This is what I've reserved today for. I will definitely make sure and link the other videos at the end so that you can see the final product. Okay. It's a little too bland, but that's okay. So I'm going to put about another teaspoon in here. Well, yeah, another 2. Just because I want it to have a little bit more flavor. And that's why I reserved a little bit more water. Because again, you never know. Try another little taste test here. Okay, that did it. Perfect. So we're just gonna let some more of this liquid evaporate. And then once this is done, we will pull it off the fire here and strain it. Okay, so now we've got the liquid cooked down. We're gonna go ahead and turn off the burner. Oops. And let this sit for just a moment, and then we're gonna move this over here just a little bit. We're gonna scoot it over, and I'm gonna bring a strainer over, and we're gonna get this meat strained. Bring this over here now. I love these little things. They make it so easy to move these back and forth. Okay, so now that we're back at the island, we have, back at the island makes me sound like I'm on vacation. I have one of my large measuring cups, then I do have my strainer. I have everything that we need here, except for my spoon. Okay. So I'm gonna take a large bowl, and I'm gonna line it with a couple of these pieces of paper towels. And the reason I'm gonna do that is that's gonna help to soak up any of the excess grease, because again, I don't want my burritos to be greasy. And I am going to now see what I can do just to kind of strain this. And I don't think there's gonna be much, but I just wanna double check and make sure. I've let it sit. As you can see, there's some stuff draining, but not a lot. I'd rather it drain into here than get kind of soggy over in the bowl. Okay, there we go. And again, this is just an extra step I take. You don't have to if you feel that you've cooked out the majority of your liquid. You don't have to do this. This is just something I like to do because I don't like a soggy burrito. I've also done this where I take all of it and put it in a colander and just let the colander sit in a larger bowl for a little while if I'm like making tacos for the night. But because what I am doing at the moment is building an assembly line of items that I'm going to turn into burritos, it's going to be a little while before I use this, so I don't want to quite do that. And what I'm going to do once I have this meat completed, I'm gonna put it in the oven. I'm not gonna have the oven on, I'm just gonna have the light in the oven on, which will keep it warm for me until I'm ready. And I am going to probably do the beef bean, and the cheese and bean burritos first. Because I'm also gonna be doing breakfast burritos, but that entails cooking more sausage and some eggs and potatoes. So, not sure, kind of keeping an eye on the time, and I don't want the beans to get cold and have to reheat them, and I don't want the meat to get cold. I don't want it to spoil either. Now I have my beans and my favorite little trick, which is a microwave is an amazing thing. I've got the bowl of my beans in the microwave after we cooked it. It's just got a little bit of saran wrap on the top. And if you were to open the microwave, it's still warm in there. So I'm using my appliances to help me keep things warm. I know how many people know that that's a great thing to do. I do that a lot when I'm making dinner or I'm making a breakfast, and let's say I'm making French toast, right? Then I would put that on the plate and the plate in the microwave to help keep it warm while I'm making the rest of what I'm making. So that when I serve up the plate, everything on that plate is going to be warm. Okay. So see, not a lot of juice, but just or liquid, but there's just a little bit. I'm just gonna put this directly in here. And again, this is something super simple to clean up. Thank you for joining me today. And if you have a way that you like to do your ground beef for your tacos or burritos that's a little bit different than mine, I'd love to hear it. If you have any tips or tricks, be sure to leave them in the comments below. And I will link the other videos at the end. And thank you again for joining me. I will see you again soon.